Welcome, welcome. My name's Solange Ellen, and I'm recording this Child Protection Support Group meeting from Nadri Nation. I'm on the call with Donna Markwell. Where are you, Donna?
I am in Ku-ring-gai area, Ku-ring-gai Nation. Yeah,
beautiful.
Just up from Eora Nation. Yeah.
That's your ancestors' homeland, right? Beautiful.
Correct, yes.
Yeah. So where are we at in the great unfolding, Donna? Oh my goodness, it's all happening, hey?
Wow. I mean, there's been so much this week with, with people navigating successfully in and out of the false jurisdiction.
Go Dylan.
Down there. Dylan, yeah. Down there in Canberra. It's great to see. It's great to see. And that's what we did when we were in the youth court. Love to bring a little bit up about youth court. We're finding out a bit about how it is such a closed court. When I went in there, I was not allowed to have any support. You can't even get transcripts. Everyone I've spoken to who's tried to get transcripts from the youth court, including other judges from the Supreme Court, have been unable to get transcripts from the court. So we don't even know what they're saying and what they're recording in these courts. They're absolutely a closed court, whereas they really should be in more like a jury. A jury should be hearing these matters. A jury of peers should be hearing these matters. And these criminals are permitted to keep going because they keep it as a closed court, and they keep everyone hoodwinked and using lawyers and slave managers, as we know. So, for me to even get any transcripts, one of the peoples were asking, get transcripts and show us what you've done. Well, I can't get transcripts, but I would say, because they're acting in a criminal way, that you would be allowed to record your court hearings, even though
absolutely.
They say you can't.
Yeah. Everybody dealing with any of these criminal corporations that are making false claims against you or your family or your children, claiming that they've got authority over you, you need to be recording all of your interactions with them, because it is actually organised crime, and you need to be documenting so that you have that information and that evidence to support and protect yourself. So welcome
For sure.
to the other people that have joined us. You just missed a little bit, so we just want to make sure everyone knows that we are recording, and it will be published. So if you've got things that you want to ask or share, feel free to raise your hand and we'll unmute you so you can do that. And just only disclose that which you're happy to have published in this call. And there is a second private chat, and the link for that is in the chat for this Zoom. So you can grab that one to be able to get onto the private one when we end this call, just so we're all on the same page. Sorry, Donna, sorry to interrupt, but yes. On the matter of the transcripts, I know that the same was true for Mama Mel when she was, being dragged through the ordeal of they've stolen her baby, and then, it's basically just the theatre of court, and there is no justice at all. It is just whatever the DCP puts before the judge just rubber stamps it. It's just administration in their child trafficking. So the only reason that you were able to get the result you got is because you have the comprehension to see it all for what it is, and to stand in the truth, to stand in your power under divine domain, under, Crown jurisdiction, on the sovereign First Nation, Ghana, where you were standing, acknowledging your own ancestry back to your nation, and speaking as a living flesh and blood woman of soulful substance to address all of those agents of the criminal corporations and tell them what they needed to do. And you do have the highest jurisdiction. You are the highest authority in truth. And that is why Takara had to be returned. But I know for Mel, when she was asking for those transcripts, they were saying to her, it's at the discretion of the clerk. And the clerk declined to make that available to her. So it's this absolute criminal fraud where they just make up the rules to suit themselves. you know, they basically just rely on people being so traumatized and disempowered by not having honest information, that they just give themselves over to the system and over to the lawyers and just do what they're told to do in desperate hopes that that's going to get them their child or their children back. And it has to end. We need to get the honest information out to all the mums and dads and have people realize that we've basically all been lied to and tricked, you know, from the time we were born. We've been registered into this fraudulent system where they make all these false claims to ownership and control over us and our children. And we really need to just see that for what it is, so that we can dissolve that fraud by standing in the truth and speaking from the truth and getting people around us to support us in that really comprehend what that means as well. Because I know, you know, when people are in fear, they want to default to what they know. And so that's where people, you know, when they're put under pressure, you've had your children stolen, and then they say to you, oh, well, getting a lawyer is your best chance of getting your children back. You know, you need to have the strength in your own self to know that that is not true. That's part of the lie. And you also need to have people around you, build your support network of people that really are in standing with the truth, so that they can support you in standing strong, because this is too big for us to be doing as isolated little individuals, which is why we need to build this community.
Absolutely. And I remember getting heavily pressured to use a lawyer, but I knew that would be the downfall of my case. As we've seen many go before us use lawyers, and that it's the immediate downfall of their case. The other thing is that we noticed that DCP were very clever in so-called handing my daughter over to mum and dad, even though they didn't hand her over to mum and dad. It sort of made it look like they'd mitigated my risks. That's what they said. And they'd actually only allowed Takara to leave with mum and dad that I got permission for. There was no change of custody. You know, they have... that's what one of my friends said. Yeah, they've done a little clever trick there to make it look like, so they didn't hand Takara straight back to me. Yeah. You know, but if I can tell you what does happen is, and what I've seen on a very consistent level, when they do change custody and give the child... not even allowed to...
Sorry, Donna, we lost
you,
Donna. Sorry, we lost you for a little bit.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Can you...
Yeah, I just noticed that when they do change custody and give the children over to the grandparents or aunties or uncles, is that the original parent is often not allowed to see or have interactions with that part of the family anymore, and that is extremely cruel. Even if they're in another state, they block them from Facebook, no photos for you. Like the cutoff is so incredibly cruel.
It's inhumane, and it's the furthest thing from supporting the healing and reunification of families that need support. So everybody needs to be seeing that for what it is and calling it out as well. Families need to unite in saying, even if the family needs support, if the parents actually are genuinely in need of assistance. Sorry guys, I'm having trouble when I'm muting people.
Yeah, no, that's right. When they're in need of assistance, they should be going in and getting assisted in minor matters, some very minor matters that they're absolutely destroying families and pulling them apart. And we see it over and over again. Has anyone got any other cases or any other information that they'd like to chat about who are on the call? Thank you for all attending. It's nice to see you all here.
Yeah, it's great to see you.
People who do care. Yeah, if anyone else would like to add anything, because that's what we've seen consistently in the time that we've been dealing with them, which is a couple of years now, stories about it and, just this ongoing destruction of the family, and then another destruction of relationships within the family once they've kidnapped the child.
Yeah, and driving those wedges and the divisions between the different parts of the family. So as families, instead of being afraid, because that's what the DCP do, whatever the child trafficking department is in, your part of the sovereign First Nations, because we've got to change the way that we're thinking about it. We've got to dissolve all of this corporate fraud and fiction. And that includes, the states that they've put in place. Like, none of that is actually natural or real. That's all been like this synthetic overlay that's been put over the top of us with this false construct of law that has no place here in the sovereign First Nations. So it's really coming back to the real law of the land. And that is acknowledging that we as the parents and the family are the highest authority. And, we are trusted by our Creator with these beautiful little children that we bring into the world. And it really is up to the families to be working together. And where there is dissonance and, trouble that needs to be resolved, what we want is to get supports in place to assist with mediation and counselling and reunification, to actually support the families in being as cohesive as possible and finding their own solutions. We don't want these external strangers coming and inserting themselves as the authorities and then telling the families how it's going to be and who can talk to who, and if you're allowed to speak to your child or have a photo of your child. No, like that is not for paid corporate agents, basically employees and contractors, to be dictating to the families that actually bring these babies into the world and love them. What we need to get is the focus back on what is genuinely in the best interest of the child and what are the real needs. Are there real needs and are there unmet needs, and how can we put in place supports to meet these needs? And so that's the change that needs to be happening now within us, for we the people, because it's really our responsibility, but also for the workers within this system now. As we're restoring the real law, the shift actually has to happen inside the hearts and the minds of these workers, for them to, instead of being just blindly following these corporate policies that says, oh, this is just the way we do it, this is the policy, this is our policy, or this is the act. None of that is law. All of that is corporate policy that has been generated by a construct that is controlled by pedophiles. And we know that. There's a mountain of evidence that,
That's right,
demonstrated that over and over again. So we don't follow pedophile policy. That's over. We're finished with pedophile policy. What we follow now is humanity, and we use our natural intelligence and our conscience and our discernment and honest conversation with other human beings, our colleagues and family members, and we treat each other with dignity and respect and kindness, and treat each other as we would want to be treated in the other party's place. And we use whatever resources are available to us to help each other and to protect the children as best we possibly can, with honesty and integrity. So
the biggest voice that I find is lacking is the younger ones. Like Takara was 14, she could speak for herself, but the babies and the ones under, say, 8 and 9, they're just buying them. They get them in their care and they just buy them with all this stuff. But the babies have no voice. And I've had beautiful mothers come to me who have given DCP breast milk, who just, the baby is, one of them is not keeping warm, so they put it in humidity crib. All this mother wants to do is hold her baby and breastfeed her baby, and we know that it was sensitive to formula and stuff like that, so they just jam it on formula. We've got rashes, it's cold all the time, it's sick all the time. I mean, if we're finding that DCP are doing that, then they need to be held to some really hardcore account, because there's a desperate mother that wants her baby back, and they're treating it like a bit of flesh that gets dumped in a humidity crib, gets fed formula, it just gets dragged around, doesn't even know who its mother is. This baby has no voice except its poor mother, who is now emotionally just a crippled train wreck. She can hardly move from grief. They've already destroyed, and another child was died in DCP care, and now they've stolen her baby. What can, like, you know, she hasn't even, this is what I'm realizing, Solly, these people are so grieved, they don't even have the capacity to fill out a form.
Yeah.
They literally have to, they're put in a position where they have to use lawyers. I revisited some of my paperwork yesterday, and I was a train wreck. I could hardly function. I felt horrible. I felt cloudy. I felt sick again, like I was in it. The night before, I had a dream they took her again. I had a dream she was gone again. They said, oh, she's not wiping herself properly. She's going again. She's not. Just this ridiculous dream. It's like PTSD. And I've got it back within 36 days, 37 days. These mothers that are in it, you can't function. This is what I'm realizing. I can't even hardly revisit the work now to do the steps now to get the millions of dollars that they actually owe me, that I've invoiced them for. I've got to now revisit it. I was just sick that day, just like not great. This is what they're going through. It's horrible. They're in so much pain and so much trauma. You literally have to use a lawyer because you can hardly function. They know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. It's crippling.
Yeah. That's why this conversation and all of you beautiful people that are here to help hold this conversation are so critically important, because what we're doing in talking truth and dissolving the fiction and the fraud, that what they are doing is child protection, because it's not, it's child abuse. You know, it's
they got no authority. You're right. That's the false names. That was another thing. The false name that they use, they invert it, that they're giving any child protection, as if they're helping anyone. Please show me the people who they've helped.
Yeah. I've got Steph's got her hand up, so I'm going to
Steph
ask Steph to unmute. She might have a question or something to contribute. Can you unmute yourself, Steph?
Yeah, I was just going to ask if you could go through that for some of the people, simply because I think, like, I originally thought that the DCP was helping, okay, and now I realise in probably at least 90%, maybe even higher cases, it's the reverse. They're actually taking high-functioning children from high-functioning families and leaving those that are in need of help. And so I wanted to ask you to go through that again, but also to explain the motivation via the birth certificate, because a lot of people may not be aware that I think it's about $20,000 a day. There's a lot of money that changes hands, which goes to the head people that gather in the DCP, the magistrates, the judges, the psychiatrists, all the people involved in this, basically this child trafficking abduction system. Yeah,
they appeal for the trust. They appeal for your birth certificate trust, which has got millions in it for the blood, sweat, equity that you would be born with. The amount of blood, sweat, equity you supposedly would put into that country, you're born with a trust with millions of dollars in it that we can't access because we sign it all over with the birth certificate. So we just sign it all away and become good, obedient slaves to this system. So that's how it all starts. So when they had Takara, yes, they weren't generous. It wasn't DCP that paid for mum and dad to come down. It wasn't DCP that filled her 23 kilo suitcase up for her. It was her money, her birth certificate trust that they're pilfering. Now, you're right. We believe they get up to 600,000 for these abductions, especially babies. There's Rachel Vaughan was talking about that they get millions of dollars for babies. So and they're pilfering the babies' trusts. So they're forever going for, 3-month orders, 1-year orders, then boom, straight into 18-year orders for babies with nearly no evidence, no due process, no voice of the mother properly being heard. And it's disgusting. This is what's happening. These mothers and parents are left in traumatic grief, can hardly function, and then they're trying to put them with parents that historically have abused them. They even tried it with Takara, tried to stick her back with her dad, and she's going, I don't want to. He abandoned me at age 9. He said this and lied about my mother. I don't want to go back to him. Oh, but we're doing our best to fix that relationship. Every day she's saying, can I talk to mum? There's nothing wrong with mum. So this cherry picking of information and how they write their reports is another disgusting thing that they do. And this is what they present, exactly what Solly said before. They just go in there, and this is confirmed as well by the youth court. A worker there told me that this is confirmed, that the magistrates in the youth court are just yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full, exactly like Solly said. They're just administrators that stamp whatever DCP want. Whatever they want. The magistrates don't go against what DCP want ever. And that's someone who sits in 20 youth cases a day. Okay? He sits in 20 youth cases a day, and he said that a magistrate never goes against what DCP do. So there's no due process. There's no all equal under the law. There's no nothing.
No, this is straight up organised crime. And the sooner that we as a community see that for what it is, the sooner we can sort it out, because we really need to be honest and stop feeding into the illusion that this is in any way okay, because it's not. It's causing massive, massive harm and loss, incredible grief and trauma. And as you said, Donna, babies dying. So this mother that you're aware of, they've stolen her current baby. They've stolen her current baby, and they've already had, let's say, they've killed a baby of hers. They've taken a baby that was meant to be protected, and that baby is dead now. And who's responsible? Who's responsible? Where's the accountability? The people that killed that baby, the baby is dead under their jurisdiction, their magical, false, fraud, made up claims to authority. And there's nobody held to account, nobody responsible. So that's what
we know all the medical system are in. The medical system will just cover it up for them. Like they've got all the psychiatrists in, they get these poor women that are completely traumatized because exactly that scenario has happened to them. And then they want them to have psych reviews. It's trauma, guys. They're not mental. They don't have a mental illness. Again, DCP are causing these mental illnesses because of so much stress. There's psychiatry pulled into it. You can bet doctors would have just signed off, oh, the baby was going to die anyhow. Oh, we know nothing to see here. No compensation for no one. The baby was sick and we couldn't help it. They've got the medical teams on board. They've got the cops on board. You know, that, like we've said before, they've got this so stitched up. It's no wonder that people believe it, but it's people coming out and telling their stories and telling the truth, whether they've got gag orders on them or not, because even your gag orders are fraudulent. You're abiding still by a criminal. Flick that gag order right off.
Can I just say, I got a bit of a wake-up call about 2 years ago. We were in a country town, and we often go down and stay with these people. They're friends of ours, and invited some friends that we hadn't met before over, and their daughter came, and their daughter was very, very overweight. Anyway, she went outside and didn't really communicate with us. And then the parents told us that she had gone off to Egypt for a holiday, met this guy in Egypt, and he had said he wanted to come to Australia and he loved her. So she married him and brought him back to Australia. She had one little girl, and he started to be abusive, she said. And by then she found out she was pregnant again with her son. And their whole town thinks she's nuts. And I listen to this girl and the parents. They've spent hundreds of thousands going through these courts trying to get these children back, because she had the second child, the little boy. She was the first day home from hospital. She had left her husband and gone to live with her parents in this country town. The DCP arrived at 8 a.m. in the morning. She was breastfeeding the little boy. She'd only, I don't know, she'd only just come home either the night before that day from hospital. They took both children, and she has never seen them again. Her parents have seen them. They've been given access. She has seen them on a couple of Zoom calls, but when she talked to them about her faith in Christian religion, the father immediately stopped the Zoom call. She's frightened they have been abused by the father, but they now live in Canberra and she lives in the country, South Australia. I did invite her on the call today, but she hasn't come, unfortunately, and I just feel so sorry for her. And the other one, I think I've already shared on a previous call, was this girl that I met at DCP when I was there. And I've only been there to the DCP once. I was actually supporting somebody else. And I met this woman, and she has 3 children. And she was having regular fights with her husband. And she got angry and asked him to leave, because he'd basically, I suppose they'd had a bit of a fisticuff, which is probably not very nice, but some families do that. And he left, and he tried to come in, so she rang the police. The police came round and said, no, he couldn't enter the house. And the DCP were at her door within 3 days. She said she'd leave them with her parents, and she did. The DCP once again arrived at 8 a.m. in the morning, told the grandparents that they were too old to look after her children, and they took them, and she's now lost them for 2 years. Now, I know that woman, and I know this younger woman down in this small town in South Australia, and from what I can observe, neither are nuts. They're very traumatized, but they're not nuts. And just to make matters worse with the second one, who had her 3 children taken, she basically was told by the DCP, don't talk to your husband because he's violent. And first they said, talk to him and make up with him. She went to court, and then they used that against her and said, oh, you're trying to make up with your husband, so we have to keep the children. And the motivation is these trust funds, this bond money. We're all bonded. Through the birth certificate, and some people might not know that. And anyway, so then she sort of tried to extricate herself from her husband. That didn't work either. So now she and her husband meet in secret. And I believe if they actually presented a united front, they probably, and they came through this system that Donna used, they probably could get the children back. But now she's terrorised, because I believe they listen to phone calls, they look at the messages on Facebook and whatever, and they know that she has perhaps been talking to people like us who want to help her, and she's been told that she'll lose those kids forever. I suspect that part is not, that's my assumption.
No, they do actually. They put all of the stuff that we released on Facebook in the court order. They were absolutely all over it. They actually said to me, we've had medical professionals watch your videos, and we think that you're drug abusing and that you're got this undiagnosed bipolar. And I said, that's called grief. They're seeing grief. They're putting these parents into hardcore grief, and then they're calling it out as mental illness or calling it out as drug abuse. They're the 2 main bullets that they shoot at the parents. And that's exactly what they'd be doing. They'd be watching them. They were very easily able to cut off all communications on every platform with me and Takara. Very easy able to do that.
Yeah, so one of
the
other things that I know that they have done with other mums is mess with their communications. So send them emails or text messages that they can't respond to that are on time delays. So they'll get something that gives them their schedule of visit, when their contacts will be, and they'll open them, but then they basically like set to self-destruct. So then those bits of information are gone. So if when the parents got them and opened them, they didn't like physically make a note of that information's then not accessible, which makes it really hard for traumatized parents to keep track of all of these appointments that they're meant to be at to prove themselves worthy to these child trafficking criminals that have stolen their children. And it just, what they do is they deliberately make it as hard as possible and set the parents up to fail. So whatever they put as the benchmark of what the parents need to do to prove themselves, they make it as almost impossible as they can. Yeah. So that the parents, no matter how devoted and how focused and how dedicated they are to trying to prove themselves and earn, you know, their children back from these criminal strangers that have all been paid to steal them, there's nothing they can do, you know, like it's a really deliberately cruel system that is designed to inflict as much trauma and to keep the children in the system for as long as possible, because that's, you know, that's what they're getting paid for, is the control over these children that they can move around like little pieces of property. You know, they're not there for the care of the child. And we can see that by the outcomes of the children that go into this system. You know, we know that the children that go into this system, the vast majority are being abused in the system and come out very damaged if they come out at all. So that's
the mother with the 3 children, she says that the oldest son is about 13, the daughter's 11 or 12, and the youngest one's 9, and they've been in care for 2 years. She says the daughter, the older daughter, has been sexually abused by a carer, and there's no recourse, no accountability at all.
No accountability. I've been with a mum who witnessed the red raw vagina of her little 4-year-old who's in DCP control, reporting to DCP on nothing to see here, and went with her physically to the police station to support her in reporting through that supposed official channel, only to have them say, oh, we'll write a report and check with DCP. So DCP is like this all-powerful body that the police will defer to. So when the parents come to say, my child's not safe over there, they're basically redirected back to over there where the child's not safe and nothing is done. So the wider community really needs to wake up to how criminally organised this child trafficking and child abuse is. This is not random, it's not occasional. The good news stories of children that actually get good placements and good outcomes are the rarity. They're the rarity in this system. You know, the vast majority are being harmed, not helped. And we really need a lot more courageous whistleblowers from within the system, and people that have been in the system and couldn't stomach it anymore because you've seen too much and you've had to leave. We need you to come forward and tell the truth, because all of these traumatized parents, like Donna was saying, when they're in the situation where their children are being held hostage, they are so sick with grief and trauma and worry, they do not have the strength to be able to fight this battle on their own. So that's where they need the rest of us that have the ability to give them a voice and make it so that, you know, this information becomes public knowledge, common knowledge. The community needs to know the truth, so that when this is going on, instead of the families being ostracized and treated like, oh, there must be something wrong with them. You know, if the DCP took their children, then there must be a reason for it. And people will just go into this automatic dismissal of even investigating what's true. They just automatically accept whatever false allegations are made and go on business as usual, instead of actually getting around these families, listening honestly, without judgment, hear what's going on. And even if the family's not a perfect family, who's got a perfect family? I haven't met one yet. But even if the family's got real issues and they need some help, instead of saying, oh, well, we'll leave that to the authorities, get around that family and support them in this process, witness them, be part of the conversations. To whatever degree the family will invite your help, actually be present with them so that they're not alone in this, because it's actually building the community and having, you know, the people, we the people, knowing what's really going on, that enables us to then give these system workers directions and say to them, this is what needs to happen. This is the honestly informed will of we the people, the family and the people around the family that love and care for and know the family. And this is what needs to happen to put in place supports for these people. And this is what we expect of you. And if you don't do it, workers, you're going to be held to account.
Get their names. Get their names. That's the next step that I'm going on to now. Get their names, get them recorded, and get them charged.
Absolutely. We've got
with kidnapping and holding hostage, with facilitating child abuse. Pick out some stuff that they can be charged with and put it and let that go forward.
Thank you, Donna.
They've had no recourse.
We're almost out of time. For the private chat, the link to the meeting is in the chat section of this call. So if you want to grab that, we'll finish this call, the recording. This will go public, and the next chat is a private one where people can feel free to, you know, bring forward your own situation, and it's not recorded and it won't be published. Thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate it. Please share the recording with your family and friends so we can get this honest information out.